Our everyday life is filled with decision-making moments, with bumping into people, with taking actions. The rhythm that we have been taught to follow takes the mindfulness out of the way we act and react, making what could be meaningful decisions seem dull and simple. Picture this. You are driving on your way home. You stop at a red light. A homeless person approaches your car window, asking for something to eat or some change. How do you react? Do you look away? Do you give what you have? And if you do give what you have, do you do it because you want them to leave? Because you feel obligated? Because there are people watching? Or because you are convinced that by giving to that person, you are changing their day? According to the book, The Justice Motive in Everyday Life, research shows that there are three main motives for which a person may look to benefit another person: egoism, altruism, and ethical principles. Egoism entails self-interest and the need to satisfy a personal desire. It states that the ultimate objective of a person is their own welfare. Whether it is doing something nice just to be able to post it on social media or wanting to lift a feeling of guilt, a selfish action is done only considering the benefits and satisfaction it will bring to the person doing the action. Altruism, on the other hand, is helping someone else at some cost for oneself. It can go from waiting a few extra seconds while holding the door for someone or giving up your seat in a crowded bus to being an organ or blood donor. This type of action is especially important because it usually comes from genuinely wanting to help and make a sacrifice for someone that needs it. Last but not least, there are ethical principles. William David Ross, an accomplished Scottish philosopher, developed a list of duties that describe and characterize different types of acts. Among this list, we can find duties that come from our own previous actions, like fidelity to fulfill and reparation to make up for our mistakes. The ones that come from the previous actions of others, like gratitude. Duties born from the inconsistency between pleasure and merit, like justice. The ones born from the possibility to improve the conditions of others, like beneficence. And the ones born from the possibility to improve one's own conditions, like self-improvement. Being aware of the motive behind our actions allows us to have a notion of the tendencies and behaviors we follow. And that way, correct what needs to be corrected and continue with what is already right. Selflessness and altruism are things we can develop. A lot of people believe that that is something that just comes, a feeling that you suddenly get. The Buddhist philosophy is based on the belief that the mind can be trained and strengthened like any muscle. In other words, if you are constantly repeating to yourself positive, happy things, that side of your mind will grow. If you are constantly repeating to yourself negative thoughts, that area of your mind will get stronger. Rick Hansen, in his book Buddhist Brain, explains to us how virtue, wisdom, and mindfulness are the three Buddhist pillars that need to be followed in order to achieve psychological growth and spiritual realization. He talks about the naked mole rat, a rodent from Eastern Africa that is known for not feeling pain due to the lack of substance P that functions as a pain transmitter in every other creature. Since their nervous system is not designed to feel pain, they live up to 10 years longer than any other creature their size. Can you imagine? Living with the guarantee of never feeling pain, being able to simply heal and move on. We, on the other hand, are a little bit more complicated. The human nervous system is divided in two: sympathetic nervous system, or SNS, and parasympathetic nervous system, or PNS. The SNS is in charge of the fight or flight function. In any given situation, we decide whether we stay and fight or just run for our safety. The PNS, on the other hand, is in charge of functions that are the complete opposite: sleep, eat, rest, etc. The big downside of the human nervous system is that it has evolved to the point of making us worry about the future, regret the past, and blame ourselves for what happens in the present. Where our ancestors worried about snakes and lions, we worry about what others might think and say about us. Instead of accepting the punch and letting it go, we go through it in our head over and over again. We carry all that pain in our hearts, which ends up making us unhappier and unable to enjoy the present. To conclude, Hansen explains 3 techniques we can learn to think differently in order to achieve that spiritual growth: meditation, affirmative thinking, and composure. Meditation, to concentrate and to be mindful. Mindfulness is a psychological process of bringing attention to what is happening in the moment. Simple things, such as focusing on our breathing, feeling the floor under our feet, noticing the little details of the moment. When we are mindful and present, our mind is at rest. Affirmative thinking. The brain is pretty easy to convince. Just think about it. We are terrified of some things even though we have never done them before. It's just an illusion. We start to salivate just by picturing our favorite meal. If you are constantly repeating to yourself positive affirmations, your brain will come around to believing them. That way, instead of spending sleepless nights stressing and suffering over a test you've been studying for weeks, you can just pave your way to tranquility and peace with positive affirmations. And finally, composure. Composure is the happiness we get from having control over things. A person that is composed can control the emotions of the moment into reacting in a thought-out way, instead of simply exploding. It is a true sign of control, power, and peace. By now, you may be asking yourselves, what does meditation and positive thinking have to do with helping others? In the foreword of the book, Peace is in Every Step by Thich Nhat Hanh, a Buddhist monk that is also a Nobel Peace Prize winner, the Dalai Lama wrote, and I quote, "Although attempting to bring world peace through the internal transformation of individuals is difficult, it is the only way." He also says that peace must be developed within each of us so that each of us can create a harmonious atmosphere that will reach those around us, first those who are close to us, and eventually the whole world. With work, errands, due dates, traffic, the 24 hours in our day barely feel like enough. So we have to make decisions and prioritize what needs to be done. Doing mental exercises and meditating doesn't seem as important. We choose productivity over happiness. Making time, making a pause to take a look into our mind doesn't feel worth it. So we don't. We keep going. We try to keep up with everything and everyone around us. We start feeling overwhelmed. Each day flies by and we are missing the moments. We are missing the details. Making an impact, changing the world, reaching out to people may sound complicated and hard, but as I mentioned before, all it takes is to start small and grow from there. In my community, I am part of a social group that works towards helping those in need, whether it is visiting orphanages to spread some cheer, or inviting people to donate supplies to animal shelters, or just driving around the city handing out snacks and water bottles. This is something that started out as a simple project, but that now connects young people from all over the state that want to be part of the solution. The truth is, we are surrounded by a lot of people who are investing themselves in their community and that are taking into their hands the problems and situations they want to see solved out of selflessness and love. Emmanuel Levinas was a French philosopher known for his work in ethics and existentialism. He developed a philosophy based on the idea that each and every one of us has a responsibility towards the others. That in every encounter and conversation, we discover our responsibility towards them and our duty to increase the happiness of the people involved. In that exteriority, in having a sense of what happens outside of ourselves, we are able to find and align with transcendence. To put it in simpler words, every face-to-face encounter is an opportunity for us to discover and reflect. What is my role with this person? To be understanding and to feel compassion, to sense what is right through ethical sensibility instead of sticking purely to making rational decisions and rational actions. Recognizing every encounter as an opportunity and every person as part of our journey to transcendence is a fundamental part of living a mindful life. We take care and look out for each other. People stop being just strangers and they become part of our journey, part of our life. We live in a world where most of the things around us are things we cannot control. In the uncertainty and anxiety of it all, I remind myself of the words of the Tibetan teacher, Rinpoche. He says, ultimately, happiness comes down to choosing between the discomfort of being aware of your mental afflictions and the discomfort of being ruled by them. We must face the facts when trying to make a big change in our lives. To fix a problem, we have to know what the issue is before. We want to live a pleasant life, then we must figure out first what is making it unpleasant. We want to be happier, more productive, more present, adventurous, wise, fun. And the only way to do that is to take a dive into our mind and decipher what weight is keeping us from standing tall, from swimming to the surface. We empty our mind to allow ourselves to feel peace, not because we want to ignore what is going on around us, but because only in achieving that peace, we enable ourselves to fill our heart and be ready to create that harmonious atmosphere that will bring us closer to the place we aspire to live in. So, empty your mind, fill your heart, and let's see the world change, one person at a time.